I would say that he eats and sleeps and drinks football, but he doesn't get to sleep. He's Peter King, the Football Morning in America columnist, NBCSports.com. Pete joins us now. Pete, explain the Denver Broncos situation and why this game was played.
Well, because on October 13th, Roger Goodell sent an email, sort of sent I guess you might call it a sort of a manifest about the way he wanted the rest of the NFL season to go. And he said in that document very clearly that although many of us in the media had speculated, because there's a lot of people in the league who wanted it this way, we had speculated that if a position group gets knocked out, they're going to postpone the game and they'll make it up in week 18. And Roger Goodell sent out this memo that said, no, this is why you have been handed a 16-person practice squad. You figure a way to, if you get your offensive line wiped out, you figure a way to get an offensive line to be ready to play. And the same thing happened with Denver. You know, Bill Polian, who's an advisor to Goodell this year, told me yesterday, essentially, hey, Bruce Arians has one of his quarterbacks set apart from all the other quarterbacks so that if they test positive, he'll always have one. And he said the Broncos chose not to do that. If he was saying everything that he wanted to say, he would have said, dumb move by the Broncos. But in reality, Dan, it kind of was. So teams have been on notice for 6 weeks that if they get a position group wiped out, they're still going to have to play. And Dan, this all goes back to something that Goodell told me right around Labor Day, and that is there is no guarantee that the disease, that the virus is going to get any better anytime soon. And we're seeing that right now. It's getting worse every week rather than getting better. So the NFL's view is we would rather see a compromised football game than push the season back a week and risk not being able to finish the season.
But what do you think it's going to take for the commissioner to have that, add that extra week and maybe that extra playoff team in each conference?
What it would take, I believe, is an outbreak such as Baltimore's, but an outbreak such as Baltimore's that shows no signs of flagging. So in other words, you know, the outbreak in Baltimore is now getting less. There were 2 more players added to it Saturday, 1 on Sunday. And the Ravens have been told flat out by Alan Sills and the people inside the NFL, look, we see this going away. You know, we think we have this virus contained. Now, if they were in the middle of it and every day they're getting 8 or 10 more people put on the list, that is when I believe the NFL would say, we got to create a week 18. If and only if that the games have some playoff significance. If Jacksonville and the Jets, I don't even know if they're playing, but if Jacksonville and the Jets had a game canceled or a game postponed, they wouldn't make up the game.
Talking to Peter King, his column Must Read, Football Morning in America. I'm trying to figure out if I feel like I know the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I figure that Kansas,
great point.
Like I'm just not quite sure. So let me start with the Buccaneers. Where do you stand with them of where they are now and maybe bigger picture here?
I mean, the incredible thing about the Bucs is that there have been times this year where Brady has been in total concert with the play calling and his receivers. I can think of 3 or 4 games where he's looked absolutely marvelous. And then there are times when, you know, the ball is falling 5 yards in front of his receivers and you're saying, what just happened? I think it has something to do with 2 things, Dan. Number one, Tom Brady is a guy who loves to throw the football. I'm talking about during the week, in practice, in the off season. Even at the age of 43, he is throwing pain-free. And, you know, because he's got his mechanics worked on with Tom House. And he's throwing the ball And he's so comfortable with it that when he was in New England, he would throw, maybe not year round, but close to it. And that would allow him to form such a great bond with his receivers. The year that Chris Hogan came in, for instance, as a free agent, and then in the Super Bowl comeback against Atlanta, that was his big season. I remember saying to Brady after the season, how did you get in such great chemistry with Chris Hogan and with Malcolm Mitchell, that guy who had the 1 year run with the Patriots? How did you? And he said, 122 practices. He knew how many practices he had. And so in the off season, that's part of his time with his receivers. And although they did some stuff off the field, it wasn't organized. And Arians and Leftwich weren't there. So I think that's part of it. And I think the other part of it is, too, that defenses know exactly how to play Tom Brady right now. And what they're doing is they're taking advantage of the fact that Arians loves to throw the ball deep. And so he doesn't really get the amount of protection that some teams would give. For instance, keeping in a second tight end to help Brady like a sixth offensive lineman. In my opinion, that's what they should do more of right now to help Brady have a chance to be more of Brady this year. But you're right. From week to week, it's hard to know what to expect from them.
Yeah, I'm watching yesterday, and Tony Romo went out of his way to basically say, I'm not putting this on Tom Brady. I'm putting this on Bruce Arians and this offensive game plan. Tom Brady knew what he was signing up for. He knew what he was signing up for Bruce Arians. He knew what he was signing up with his offensive philosophy, right?
Well, he did, but let's be honest about this. Part of this was about a lifestyle change and the fact that, as he told me in the summer, he said, this is my 30th year in football. And it's the first season I'm ever entering with an offensive head coach. His high school, college, and professional head coaches have all been defensive guys. So that was part of it. And the second part is, Dan, tell me how many options he had. I think that he wishes the Indianapolis Colts were interested, because I think he would have loved to have worked with Frank Reich. But the Colts weren't interested. And so, I think you have to look at your situation and what options you have. And look, I think that this has a chance to turn out okay. Maybe not Super Bowl okay, but better than it looks right now. Because when you count out Tom Brady, you usually are disappointed.
Do you think Brady's better than Phillip Rivers?
Today, right now, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. I know Tom reached out to the Colts, or at least I was told that, and the Colts basically, they had already made up their mind. They were going with Phillip Rivers.
I think that was easy, though, Dan, because of Frank Reich's history with Phillip Rivers.
Is Carson Wentz benchable?
He should be. Just
financially?
Well, financially, it's going to hurt if you put him on the bench, obviously. But, look, it's almost like, the Chicago Bears hoping against hope week after week after week, all of last year, basically, Trubisky's going to come out of it. Early this year, Trubisky's going to come out of it. And, at some point, you have to say, what's the best thing to win the game this week? And in my opinion, I think Doug Peterson, it's long past time. It's 2 weeks past time to consider playing Jalen Hurts.
What are the Niners going to do?
I think they're going to argue with the county in Santa Clara. And obviously, you saw last night, they're extremely upset with them because instead of telling them what they were going to do, they issued a press release. Yeah. They're going to argue with them that, look, we have done a great job in keeping our facility clean, blah, 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 blah. But if they lose, I've always thought that the best place for them to go was Arizona because of the multiple places they could find to work and the ready-made NFL stadium. I have no idea what the stadium in San Diego looks like right now, Dan. But I think it makes more and I have no idea what the Oakland Coliseum looks like right now. Could the Oakland Coliseum be in shape to play a football game that the 49ers need on Sunday? They need to win a game, the next 2 weeks to stay in this playoff hunt. And they're home the next 2 weeks. And I think it'll be difficult. That's why I think they got to go to a ready-made NFL stadium. Arizona makes the most sense to me.
Why did the Lions now realize they needed to move on from Matt Patricia?
They were, look, it's an inexperienced owner. She just got the team this year. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. Sheila Ford Hamp, excuse me. She just doesn't know. And so she wanted to give her team a chance, as big a chance as she could. And then when she saw what happened the last 2 weeks, she said, this is unfixable. And it probably was going to be unfixable anyway. But I think she just said, I want to give this, my people as much of a chance as they deserve.
Where do you think is going to be the best opening, head coach wise?
Houston. I wrote this morning that I think it would be so cool to see Eric Bieniemy graduate from Patrick Mahomes to Deshaun Watson. Can you imagine you're an offensive coordinator and then you're a head coach, and the two quarterbacks in the prime of your career are Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson? It'd be incredible. And so I always will go for the place that has the young quarterback under contract and a clean slate. The other thing about Houston, Houston is a wounded animal right now. They need to be totally rebuilt. So the fact that they don't have a 1 or a 2 this year, Dan, wouldn't really bother me. I think that's an attractive job.
Yeah, it makes me nervous, though, with no draft picks and salary cap issues and J.J. Watt. What do you do with him? I love Deshaun Watson, but would the Jets be a better opening with a clean slate with a quarterback on a rookie contract?
I mean, look at the New York Jets. They choose Adam Gase over Matt Rule, and they could have had Matt Rule. And I'm not saying Matt Rule is Paul Brown, but he's better than Adam Gase. And they were just comfortable with taking an NFL coach. And, it's turned out to be a disaster. I have faith in Joe Douglas. I think Joe Douglas is really good. But there are issues inside that organization. There just are. There always have been. There's a reason why Bill Belichick resigned as the HC of the NYJ. And, somebody has to take that franchise by the neck and shake it and say, this is my team. It's got to be a very strong personality. And so to me, I don't think it's hopeless with the Jets, but I do think that I'd rather go to a place where I know the quarterback is really good already.
Hey, what do you think of Jim Harbaugh coaching the Lions?
I mean, first of all, so much of getting a coach, I don't want to say winning the press conference, but, I'm not saying he got run out of town on a rail in San Francisco, but they were happy to see him go at the end. Jim Harbaugh is not for everybody. He's very, very rough. And I wonder how he would be in a losing atmosphere. Plus, the other thing about the Lions is, what are you going to do with Matthew Stafford? And I don't think Matthew Stafford is bad in any way, shape, or form. But Danny's been the quarterback of that team for 12 years, and they've never won anything. Yeah. And I'm not saying I understand, quarterback wins isn't a stat. I get it. But can you please lift your franchise just once? And he just has never done it. So now what do? Do you keep him at $35 million next year, or do you get rid of him and take a $25 million cap hit? And it's not going to be a horrible thing if you draft a quarterback to trade. You don't want to go out and sign a free agent quarterback for money. You want to draft a young quarterback, and you want to get him ready to go in your system. And that's probably what I would do right now if I were the Detroit Lions. I'd start fresh everywhere.
And I was told prior to the draft, I wondered if they kicked the tires on Tua in Detroit. And then I was told that the front office, like everybody knew their jobs were at stake this year if they didn't win. And if you did take Tua, you had your quarterback of the future, but you might not be there in the future with him.
Can you imagine right now if they had Tua and not Jeff Okuda, who, hey, look, it's been 11 games, but he's been a total non-impact player. Yeah. And we'll see what the future brings. And the only reason you draft Jeff Okuda is because the head coach was at war with Darius Slay, and they had to get rid of him. They couldn't re-sign him. So, that era had to end. And obviously, in retrospect, they should have taken Tua.
And I'm kind of bummed out after talking to you, Pete. I don't know if we had any good news here. Anything to?
What about? Hey, can we just mention Patrick Mahomes and how watching him every week is a gift, the way Bulls fans used to have with Michael Jordan?
But it took us a little while to take Mike for granted. I said this a month ago. I said Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. If we want to do this week to week where we go, who's the MVP and who's in and who's Patrick Mahomes is. Like, it's not even close right now, I don't think. What he does?
Well, it's a 16-game award. And I think after 6 weeks, I definitely would have voted for Russell Wilson. Okay. Today, I would vote for Mahomes, and Rodgers and Wilson would be second and third in some order. But you're right. You know what? And I hope, listen, I'm voting for the MVP every year. I'm not saying, well, Mahomes won it 3 years in a row. I'm not voting for him this year. I'm voting for somebody else. That's not the way you do it. Every single year is a snowflake. It's an individual entity. It's different. And if he's the MVP, vote for him. But look, right now, today, entering December, he is the MVP.
30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And it doesn't look difficult.
That's the amazing thing. Everything comes easy to him. Dan, last week, they're in Vegas, okay? And they're down, they're down by 4 points at 3 different points of the second half. And each time they go down 4, he comes back with a drive of over 70 yards. And you're right. It just does not look hard. It's the amazing part of watching him play. It's a gift. And look, Aaron Rodgers is unbelievable too. He's absolutely fantastic. And he is carrying that team as well as Mahomes is with Kansas City. So sometimes you forget about Rodgers, but he's unbelievably good.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for staying up. And you can read the column Football Morning in America. Thank you again, Pete.
All the best, Dan. Thank you.